Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Thanks for joining me. In today's video I shall be showing you the process that I use to make box planters. These were an order from a customer. She wanted 2 of them. They're quite large planters, 1200mm wide, 300 deep. They're 800mm high to the top of the planter and a further 800 on top with some trellis work. So I'll show you in as much detail as I can the process I go through and what's involved in making these using limited amount of DIY tools. So follow along and I hope you find this video useful. In order to keep everything the same, I like to make up a jig first. So first thing I do is make up a straight edge and a right angle edge and start to get a jig formed in order to make the whole process a bit more easier, faster and a bit more streamlined really. The boards I'm using are 700mm long, so the right angle piece for the jig setup I'm just cutting just a little bit below that. The initial right angle is set up and I can lay in the boards that are going to become the front and back of the planter box. In total there's 12 for this particular planter, with each board measuring 100mm wide by 20mm thick by 700mm long. Now I need to retain the boards in position, so I've cut a slot. I'm going to fix this other board at 90 degrees and cut it off a bit shorter than the 700mm boards. The next thing is to cut 4 retaining wedges. I just use an old piece of board, not any particular angle, just something that I think will work. So I'll measure out one and then just duplicate it on the chop saw. And then I'll simply tap the wedges into place at the side and at the top, and this will ensure that the boards are all nice and tight together and all flush up against the front part of the jig, ready for the battens to be fixed. One of the most important things is to make sure all the battening that goes on the front and back and the sides is at equal dimensions to one another, so that when you go to actually put the box itself together, all these battens and shelves will line up exactly the same. So the idea of this template is to ensure that when you fix the battens, nothing's out of line. And what I've done here, I've marked down from the top 220mm, and then put the actual batten on and marked across, and this is the positioning for the shelf. So this is going to be the top, then you've got the very top batten which will go hard against the jig, and then below it is the other batten, that's at 220mm, and then above that is effectively the shelf that the plants all sit on, and that's at 200mm. So from the top down is your 200mm, which is the right height for these flower pots. That's what it will look like when it's standing up with the shelves in it. And next is the plinth. I've measured down 650 to the top. The plinth is 100, so that gives us 750. And when I finally put a cap in on the top of the box, it'll bring it up to the finish height, which is 800mm. And in order to get a good finish on the face of the boards, I need to round off all the boards so that it gives a really nice finish at the front. I'm just going to put this nice rounded edge on the face of each board. And to ensure that each board butts up squarely inside the jig, I'm just putting this relief hole through so the board just butts up square, and if there's anything in the way, it'll just fall down the hole. And with everything securely in place, I can now start fixing down the battens, making sure they're square and the right dimensions and parallel, and screwing and tacking them down ready for assembly. And that's the first side completely finished. I'll just repeat the process for the back panel and also the front and back for the second planter box. Now I've got two pieces of wood which are the equivalent to the left and right hand side, which go onto the front of the planter box. And the finished size needs to be exactly 1200 long. Now I've got to adjust the track saw to suit, and I can trim off the excess, which will give me exactly 1200. And again, I'll do this on all four front and back panels. side panels, they're made exactly the same as the front and back, except for I use 6 boards and I do them in a pair, so it's 3 boards per box. So I've got the left and the right hand side planks here, 3 planks each. What you've got to remember is this is going actually on the side of the front and the side of the back. So if I put them there, the front and back have got battens on as well. The battens are this way, just for this purpose of this. So that's in line there. So now you need another top batten for the side that will fit just snugly in there with a tiny little bit of wiggle room, just a gnat's worth of space. So that's how you set them up, and I'll do that to the top, the middle brace, the plinth, and then we're ready to fit them all together on the front and back. When it comes to assembly, it can be a little bit fiddly because these are quite large units, but single-handedly you can always use a clamp and that will work perfectly well. I've forgotten to route this edge, so I'll have to do that now. This is why I take my time and get the jigs right, so that when you finally come to the assembly, everything lines up perfectly. Well, it's day 2 of this planter box build. The first day I've managed to get them all made up and they're ready to have the lips put on the top, and I've got to make the trellis work up. So hopefully they'll be finished by today. These 2 uprights will go on, and then they'll be screwed from behind. Then each rail will go like this. There'll be a gap of about 2 or 3 inches, because I'm going to make this into what's known as a Cornish fence. You just overlap them like that, but the air can still get through them and the plants can still grow up properly. It should look quite nice. So this is how you do the trellis work on the back of the planters. This is called a Cornish style trellis. It's way more heavy duty than what you'd find in a garden centre. The units I make are made to last. Anyway, first thing I do, this is the back. I put a stop board up against here. It's going to have 6 boards at the front. Alright, that's the front, that's the back. So I'll put one in position here, spacer between them, each one of them. And then I can set up the position of the rail here that's going to be at the back. And if I do it about halfway, just make sure it's running square to the upright. Yep. And that is 66 mil from the top. You need to get this fairly precise because it will look odd on top of the planter if it's not dead parallel. Board is positioned hard up against the stop board and the front level with the 66mm line that I marked earlier. This is now the front face of the trellis work, so I'll put the first board at the top level with the top of the uprights and just repeat the process till it's all made up. And this is the start of the capping that's going on top. 50mm square timber. I'm using a square cut joint rather than a mitre joint. There's a reason for this. Mitre joints open up a lot. If you do a joint like this, glue and screw it, it stands a much better chance against the weather. You may have noticed that there's no overhang on the top capping. This is something that the customer requested. They wanted it flush fitting. So that's the first one pretty much made. I don't think it looks too bad. It's a real solid unit. I'll transport it by taking the top section off so it can go in two halves. But it's all ready now. The plant pot will go in there. You grow your plants, grow them up here, and this will last for donkey's years. So I'll get on and make the other one now.